I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I'm your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names of kicking candy ass, live in living color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. And today we have a very special guest with us all the way from the UK, my good brother for the longest time. I've been wanting to have you on the show for the longest time, Mr. Darren Burrows. Darren, what's going on, good brother?
All good, mate. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a while. Like I say, we've had we was going to do it in the past and that, but sort of fell through a couple of chances. But happy to be here and yeah, ready to watch a few, talk about a few Argento films.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to have you. You know, it's funny. You've been one of my earliest supporters, even since back when I did the Ram Nation radio, and you would watch my shows when I would stream live from there. And I know you're a big Dead Pit guy as well as I am. And that's pretty much how we clicked. And also, I believe back in the day when we did the Flashback Horror Movie podcast, me and Don, I think you watched that too. So that might have been where I first interacted with you, if I'm not mistaken.
I did your name on Dead Pit, but when I started listening to Flashback, it all came together. Then I realised who you were, and yeah, I miss that show. You and Don used to do. It used to be brilliant. Kind of like an alternative to Dead Pit. It was the two of you and that, and yeah, I still listen to the recordings of that. I still got the old MP3s of them.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, no, and it's funny. I was listening to you back when you were recording. I know, granted, I promise you will not have to be my psychiatrist tonight. I promise you. But I listened to your shows with him, and I was like, I've been long overdue to have Darren on the show. So thank you so much for coming on tonight, man. It means a lot because this is and it's for this subject. I'm so thrilled to have you on because I know you're a diehard Argento guy just like me.
Yeah. I'm like I say, I've been looking forward to this all week since we announced it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've got a couple people in the house. Aiden Vaber's in the house. Hello, everybody. I loved all these films. He says, "Hey, Darren."
Hi, Aiden. Well, again, he's talks to Aiden on Facebook, and he's really, really enthusiastic, and he loves his Argento, doesn't he? So I thought he'd be here.
Yeah, no, he's a diehard Argento. Ty Junebug Films in the house. He's late. It's all right, man. We're just getting this show on the road. First time on this channel. Ready to go like the robotic puppet in Profondo Rosso. Hell yeah, Matteo Appendino. Welcome to the graveyard, my friend. Is he one of your buddies?
No, I don't think I've heard of him. But
oh wow, okay.
I was watching the interview we did with Junebug. I was watching that back the last couple of nights. So
cool. Okay, very cool. And then Slasher Fred, Profondo Rosso is known as Deep Red in the United States. That is true. That is an absolute fact. So welcome everybody to the show. I just figured before we get into the movies, because we got 3 movies, 3 Argentos. I'm super excited. I figured we give Darren a couple of fun getting to know you questions for anybody that's not familiar with Darren. Of course, I know Aiden is, and some of the people on Facebook like Steve and stuff. But first question, and this is a big question I give most of my guests. How did you fall in love with horror? What was the big launchpad point for you? Where was the moment where you said, hey, man, I love this?
Right. So going back now, well, I don't know whether you realize, but I'm 50 years old, so I'm going back a bit now. It must have been late 1970s. A film come on the telly, a TV special in 2 parts, and that was Salem's Lot. For some reason, at the time, I think we was one of the earliest to have a VHS recorder. So I taped it, watched it with my sisters. At the time, I remember fond memories of that. And that sort of, in the UK, we used to have like the Hammer House of Horror and Hammer Horror and all that. So I was brought up with that as well. But Salem's Lot was my starting point. Then my sister and her boyfriend, my sister's a little bit older than me, and her boyfriend would go to the VHS stores and regularly get, I was spoiled back in the day. You'd be watching The Burning, My Bloody Valentine, Friday the 13th, and I was lapping it up. We'd even watched all the old sex comedies and stuff, Porky's and all stuff like that. And I just absolutely fell in love with film and all that, and it's gone on from there. I took back in the 90s, I took a bit of a dip out of things a little bit. Because I had my son, I sort of got out of it a lot. But then got back into it then in the mid 2000s when I heard Dead Pit.
Oh wow, that's great. See, that's great, man. And Dead Pit really was a big reason I got back into the genre too, because they knew their shit. And that's Salem's Lot. That's what a great pick, man. I remember seeing that as a kid too. And there's so many creepy scenes, like the vampire scratching at the window. And I always remembered the scene where Jeffrey Lewis, they have to go down into the basement. And that just, I don't know why, that always gave me the worst anxiety ever. I would be like, oh shit, like, oh my God, this is, I don't know. I just absolutely adored that movie. That's a scary film. But you mentioned you fell out with it in the 90s. When it comes to burnout, has it happened often for you in your horror fandom life? Or is it just something that when the genre is low? Because right now I would say that the genre is not really in a boom period. Like, why does that happen to you, burnout?
Right. I think back in the 90s, obviously, it was the early days of the internet. I have no access to the internet or anything like that. I've found that, I was sporadically going, to watch, I think we watched my girlfriend at the time, The Exorcist, when it was back on re-release. And, I watched Jeepers Creepers and watched some of the late 90s stuff. But so I wasn't fully into it. It'd be just like a night out, if you know what I mean, go to the cinema. But then back in 2005, I watched a little film I borrowed off my friend on VHS called Madman.
Oh,
so
nice.
I decided to Google it because I loved the film on first viewing. I Googled it, up popped Dead Pit. And then I think with the, being able to get all these films on DVD now and you can look them up on the internet and all that. I've been in love ever since. I haven't really had a dip since 2005, 2006. I've been constantly on the train of love in horror.
Yeah, no, and I know you're a diehard Giallo guy, and that leads me to my next question. Yeah. Now I know we've obviously we go over the essential Giallo films, and people in the comments have mentioned Profondo Rosso a ton of times, and whether it be Sergio Martino films or films like Torso, Mario Bava films. Is there a Giallo that you find to be the most underrated, like one that nobody talks about, nobody gives enough love to, that you really think is deserving of that?
Right. That's a good question. I don't know whether it's so underground now that I think people have latched onto it. But I think you've seen the film The House with the Laughing Windows.
Okay. Yes.
I find that to be so underrated. That that to me, that's like top tier Giallo. Obviously there's stuff like I love, like What Happened to Solange. What Have You Done to Solange, I should say. Black Belly of the Tarantula is another great one. I think that's very underrated. But the list could go on and on,
Yeah, no, and there's such an overabundance of Giallo films. Like, it's funny when you first dip your toes into Giallos, it's like it's the same ones, right? Like you start, and Argento Giallos that's really where I started and fell in love with it, and then I kind of experimented with more and more. And in fact, I got the Umberto Lindsay, Carol Baker box set recently, so I've been going through those.
Nice.
Those are pretty interesting because they're not essentially, at least Orgasmo, that was not a black glove killer one. We were talking about that briefly, how I was like, wow, like this is a different, but still an interesting film. Not one that I got that into, but one that I definitely want to rewatch again, just because it had some different themes and it still had those beautiful colors and great soundtrack, great Italian music. But my last getting to know you question before we get into the films, this is a fun one. Okay, you can have dinner with two people, alive or dead, and in the horror film business. Who are you having dinner with, and where are you going? What are you eating?
Right, that's another good question. I would say Dario Argento.
Okay.
Maybe with Diodato.
Ooh.
And the obvious, answer would be to go for a pizza and that, but maybe, go for an Italian bolognese. And if you're talking dead, then obviously mine, Fulci and Lenzi would be my two picks for that as well. But I'd love to get down and talk to Argento. And even, Sergio Martino, what a legend. Some of his films fantastic. And people
those are great picks.
People need to get on to watching them because not a lot of people know about them. You know, certainly mainstream horror fans and that, and he should really be up there. He's not quite Argento, but I don't think anyone is, as we will come on to later. But he's not far behind. And Diodato, I'm like yourself. I'm a massive fan of Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh, me
That
too. I
that
love
is
that
an
movie.
absolute masterpiece from
I
start to
agree
finish.
completely.
And I know people get a little bit icky over the kills, you know, of the animals, and I don't condone that, and I've said that in the past. But I think it's needed for the film. It's that shock, you know. But yeah, so that would be my answers for them.
I love it, man. We have a bunch more people in the chat. Have Cheetah will view. Greetings. What's going on, my friend? The Master of Fear is here. Hey, Grande. What are we watching today? We're watching 3 Argento films. We're going to get right underway. I just want to say hello to everybody in the chat. Miss C. Hey, Grande. Hello, Miss C. How are you? One of my favorite series I used to watch was Monster Vision, where they would show horror movies. Oh, my God. Absolutely. And Joe Bob Briggs was the host. So we absolutely love Joe Bob Briggs. Time Junebug Film says hello. My favorite scene in Salem's Lot is the vampire boy floating at the window.
Oh,
dude.
yeah, definitely.
Amazing movie. One of my faves. I gotta get the Blu-ray of that. I still have the standard DVD. Tobe Hooper, Salem Lot is a masterpiece. Highly agree. I think that Fright Night was inspired by Salem's Lot. Yes, it definitely. And you know what's interesting? That's an interesting film for Tobe Hooper because it was in the transitional period from after Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then Eaten Alive had come out, and Eaten Alive is interesting. Like it's a colorful film. But I think Salem's Lot might be his most scary film. Like it's a fucking effectively scary movie.
Oh yeah. Even today, by today's standards, it's still it shits me up watching it. Even by today's standards, it's creepy as hell.
Yeah, no, it is a scary film, in my opinion. Mateo says Poopy Avadi kick A in the movie. Great twist at the end too. Oh shit, yeah. I think horror has a lull because we keep talking about these same. That's true. That is true. Yeah, there's something about it, man. That's it just keeps me coming. It's like a boomerang effect. Fever Dreamland Theater. What's up, fellas? I believe Have Cheetah Review interviewed him last night. I was watching some of it. They were talking about Twilight Zone. Really cool stuff. Fever Dreamland's awesome people. Welcome to the show. Dario Argento, in a lot of ways, is underrated. And Asia Argento, swing. She is single. Give John a call. Yo,
I'm definitely on with her.
Especially in in this movie she does get naked. In this movie, oh my god, I can't wait to talk about Asia in Stendhal. Argento's my favorite filmmaker of all time. Can't argue with that. I love him. I just watched and reviewed Giallo by Argento. That is a very, very poor film in my opinion in the history of Argento. Eaten Alive, Batshit Insane, Eaten Alive with Russell Brand. Yeah, that's right, Neville Brand. But, you know, I approached Darren to do this because I do know Darren's a diehard Argento mark, and I figured we get right underway and discuss one of the quintessential films in his filmography. And I know that's saying a lot, but a lot of people, and we'll get into this towards the end of the discussion for this, consider this to be Argento's last great film and the end of his golden era. And while I may agree it may be the end of a golden era, I don't know if I necessarily agree with this being his last great film, but this is from 1987. This is Dario Argento's Opera, aka Terror at the Opera. And man, I'm a huge fan of this one. What are some of your initial thoughts on this movie?
Right, I think this one is close to being a masterpiece again. I use that word a lot, but I do believe that. I wouldn't say it's his last great film because we'll maybe come on, even though we're not discussing Sleepless tonight, I do feel that's very underrated. I think that's a very good film. But in terms of this film Opera, then yeah, it just ticks all the boxes. I mean, you've got the kills, you've got the music, which is absolutely outstanding, the soundtrack. And I think he's got like a really interesting, cast as well. Where you've got the guy from Demons, who plays the killer. Spoiler, I know, but Dario Argento, one of her, last films, I think, with him, yeah.
I believe Mother of Tears, she shows up as like the Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is a weird. It's a weird one.
That's another one that's underrated. See,
I love Mother of Tears. I love it.
The only mistake with that film is that it happens to be, like follow on from Suspiria and Inferno. And that, if it was just a standalone film, people would be, I think, take to it a lot better.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because, you know, when we talked about Trauma and Stendhal, a lot of people say, oh, he got away a lot from his style. I beg to differ, but I think the beauty of opera is it has a little bit of everything. It really does. It has a little bit of everything he had learned up to this point, because there are some, I mean, and basically, if you don't know the story, opera tells the story of this understudy played by Christina Marsalich, who you may know her. Her sister actually worked with another Italian maestro in a little film called The Devil's Honey. This is Blanca Marsalich. They are sisters, which is interesting.
I never knew that.
Yeah, no, in my research, I found that out and I went, wow. Funny enough, Argento claimed that Christina Marsalich was hard to work with on this film. Fulci claimed that Blanca Marsalich was hard to work with on The Devil's Honey. So funny, the Marsalich sisters, hard to work with. But I got to be honest, I think Christina Marsalich was a perfect choice here, because she has one thing and I think is super important with film, and that's presence. She has these beautiful eyes. And basically, if you've ever seen the poster of this movie, it's the classic needles, you know, taped under the eyelids so she can't blink. Otherwise, she'll pierce her eyelids. Instead, she has to watch those that she loves being killed. And that's the whole story is this understudy. She takes over for this big opera singer, and she develops a stalker, and one by one, the ones around her start to get picked off. Now, I think this, like you said, the music from Claudio Simonetti, absolutely fantastic. There's a great scene towards the beginning where Christina Marsalich's character, she isn't as, you know, good in bed. So she's like, oh, you know, can you make me tea? He goes, no problem. Guy comes back and he gets absolutely destroyed. It is one of the probably the best death scene in the movie. And there's quite a few in this. He gets knife to the throat. And you just see it like stick out. And Claudio Simonetti plays this awesome, like heavy metal music. And it's incredible. Yeah. I think it's called Night of the Knights, right? Is that the name of the song?
Yeah, I think it's like by a makeup band called Steel Grave. I think Simonetti made up a like fake heavy metal band.
Yes, and, yes.
Yeah. So it's but that scene is incredible, isn't it? You know, the way you see the knife, you know, you see the gore, and then the killer is so relentless in this film. But it's like the Dario as well at the start. I got written down. You know, some of the camera work. You know, you've seen some great camera work in Tenebrae when he's, you know, going through the apartment blocks, and he does very similar here, and it's like absolutely fantastic. And he just keeps that camera rolling, and he can get, you know, all the scenes and
and even the opening. I think the first shot of this movie is the eye of a raven, and in Argento's play on words of a bird's eye view. You get the bird's eye view of the raven, and I think that's so clever. He does a lot of great crane shots around as if you were a flying bird around. Just some really good stuff. Of course, you had some classic POV stuff. You have some classic dream sequences. This movie, I think it really has it all when you're looking for a great Dario Argento film. Because a lot of people say, oh, well, his films don't have a great story. I like the story in this. It's simple. It's an understudy that gets stalked and, you know, is being psychologically, mentally tormented by having to watch these killings. There's the great scene of her and Dario Nicolodi in the apartment. And it's almost like a throwback to Suspiria, where you see these green lights in the room. Really inspiring stuff. It's like everything he learned, he used here and somehow made it all work together. It's one of his most complete films, in my opinion. Would you say so?
Yeah, definitely. I think with Argento, you'll find that when we come on to the films we're going to come on to later, he recycles a lot of stuff from older films, but that's you know, not to put him down in any way, because he does it so well.
Yes.
You know, I think like when we come on to like Trauma and Stendhal, you'll see a lot of recycled stuff. Same with this film, you know, there's probably little bits of, you know, you can see Tenebrae in there, you know, sort of thing. And I think there's two scenes in this film. One scene that we'll come on to in a bit is probably my favorite Argento scene ever that he's ever shot. And that would be the crows, you know, when they're circling.
Yeah.
And then they come down on the killer. I think that's so incredible, you know, vision that he had of that, you know, to actually work out that, you know, so clever, you know, to see that you can find out who the killer is just by letting the crows loose. And I think that to me is probably one of the most standout scenes he's ever made. And I put Suspiria as my favorite film ever, but this scene I would say is my favorite scene.
That's a great scene. And I remember the scene with of course Dario Nicolodi, and there's someone at the door, right?
Yeah.
And she's peeking through the eye hole. She's like, wait a minute, let me see your face again. And of course you get a classic bullet through the eye hole of a door. Boom, right, yeah. Blows her head off. And it's since been ripped off a lot. I don't know if you're a Saw fan, but Saw 2 rips that off completely. The guy looks through the peephole, gets his head blown off. One of the craziest kills in this movie. Like, oh my God. Like, but to me too, it's the psychology of this movie. Like, what a fantastic idea from Argento, because Argento actually took something that he wanted to do in real life and used it in a film instead. See, Argento said he would hate it when he'd go to screenings of his own movies and see people look away from the terror, right? Like, oh my God, this is, or when the dog jumps up and bites the throat of the blind man in Suspiria. He hated when people would not look. He was like, I filmed this, I'm showing this. I want you to look, I want you to enjoy, I want you to be horrified. And, his whole idea was, man, I wish I could just sell these little needles with like tape on them. So you couldn't close your eyes. You couldn't look away. You had to bear witness to the horror he presents you. And obviously you can't do that. It would be very frowned upon in society. So instead he decides, why don't I use that in a movie? And with our lead actress having the beautiful eyes and presence that she does, I think it's just an iconic image. To me, it's the DVD cover of The Blue Underground, which I used to have. I actually gave it away to a friend. That DVD cover of her eyes in the opera and taped together. That's just an iconic, to me, image of his gallery of horror. It's fantastic, man. I really think it's fantastic. And, people will say, oh, this is a predictable film, from the outgo who the killer just might be. It's not about that. Not usually with an Argento film. It's not about twists and turns like that. It's really an experience, I think. And that's the beauty of this filmmaker, in my opinion. There's so many good kills in this. Of course, there's some beautiful shots towards the ending of this where it's almost like the Sound of Music, almost like.
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible? Like, they just kind of switched settings, and I thought that was I just thought the absolute breathtaking.
But getting back to the Dario Nicolodi death scene, you realize that when they actually shot that scene, she feared for her life because the explosive they had to, she said at one point she thought Dario was trying to kill her, because if you notice in the film, the girlfriend of the director of the opera was actually Dario's girlfriend at the time.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, so it was really quite strange, when they were shooting the atmosphere.
Yeah, because this was right when he and Dario got divorced, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Wow.
Apparently the atmosphere was so bad that she did think he was going to kill her. But that scene, honestly,
wow.
It's mad.
Nothing like trusting your ex-husband, right?
Exactly, yeah. And she, mind you, his girlfriend is a beautiful girl, like she really is, like. But I thought that was really strange. But when you say about that final scene, it's so bizarre, isn't it? When they're out in the Alps, you've got the beautiful view of the Alps, take you back to phenomena, doesn't it, in a way?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you've got the killer as well running after her, and that is like suspenseful as well. He's not known highly for his suspense. Argento was more for his visuals, but it's really. I didn't actually get the killer first time I watched this film.
Really?
I always thought he was the director of the opera.
Okay, see, no, they do have a few red herrings. I'll be honest, this is one that I actually predicted. I was like, and I'm usually always wrong. Bird with the Crystal Plumage. I remember the first time I watched that, I was like, okay, it's her. Okay, no, it's him. And then, every single 5 minutes, I changed my mind. At the end, I was like, wait a minute, what? I was blown away when I first saw the Bird. This was one of few I did guess, but I really liked that actor. He sadly passed on. He had HIV.
That's right,
He only lived a couple years after this, which is a shame. But I really liked his performance in this because he's in a lot of ways almost playing Dario Argento. there's
That's
a
right,
few
yeah.
people, like the critics are tearing him apart and saying that, oh, all he cares about is gore. And, you know, when is he going back to make horror films? Because I believe it was Argento's lifelong dream to direct an actual opera. Is that
Right.
true?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've read it, but he had the chance to do it, didn't he? I
I
think he had the
believe he had the
chance to
chance,
do it,
and it fell through,
and it
and
passed. Yeah.
he was really upset, and in turn makes this movie, which I am thrilled he did, because, you know, an opera at
Yeah.
that time, I wouldn't have been in Italy to see it. Thankfully we get to see this movie here, and I think it has a little bit of everything, you know, and I can understand why people call this Argento's last great film. We got some comments. This guy, opera's sick. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Welcome, King Igor. Fever Dreamland, Argento plus Freddy, that could be awesome. Imagine Argento making a Nightmare on Elm Street film in the 80s. That would have been something to behold. Opera sounds like something from Hitchcock. Yeah, no, definitely. Steve Benningfield's in the house. Steve, what's going on, good brother? Have a good show, Grande and Darren. Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate you checking the show out. Heavy metal works so well in horror. Yes, in this movie, it's perfect. Like, all of the death scenes, you know.
He gets so much like stick for, you know, from the critics for having heavy metal in his films, but again with Phenomena, I think it works perfectly. You've got Flash of the Blade by Iron Maiden, and in that film as well. But yeah, he got a lot of stick apparently for putting in metal into, you know, like an opera film. But it worked. I'm with you. It works so well. I think I really do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I think it's nice that he claps back at the critics. He really does. If you listen closely, some of the director's dialogue, he's like, I don't give a shit what they had to say. And his girlfriend, and she's like, aren't you mad they're just putting her performance over? He's like, who cares? He's like, I don't give a shit. He's like, I'm chilling right now. Like, he doesn't give a damn. Yeah. And nor should you. If you have passion and enjoy your art for what you're doing, that's all that really matters. And Argento's one of those guys. I think that's why he can sometimes turn people the wrong way. People go, oh, he's not trying to please me, I'm out. That's not really what it's all about. He's just making his vision. And that's why I really have always respected Dario Argento. And we'll get to Stendhal. There's an interesting line in Stendhal that I think is very reminiscent of his work as well. Labyrinth UFC Breakdown, smashed the like, brother. Thank you. I appreciate that. Mateo, okay, well, this was the question I wanted to wrap up opera with. Do you agree, guys, that opera is the last great movie of Dario Argento? I Like Sleepless too. I believe we're both going to say no, but name some of your faves after this.
Well, after opera?
Yes.
I would say as we're going to come on to, I like Trauma more than most, I would say. I think Stendhal Syndrome is vastly underrated as well. And again, I'm a massive fan of Sleepless. I do think Darrow's become a bit of a victim of his own success in a way, because of he's had such a good run through the 70s and 80s that when, you know, it's inevitable you're going to get a bit of a drop off in quality. And I think people have just jumped on him. But I'm the type of guy, I still got high hopes for his new film, Black Glasses. I'm really looking forward to that. And I think there's always something decent in an Argento film. There's always something. It's like with Giallo, I'll watch that, but I'll watch it as a comedy, and I'll get a kick out of it. Dracula 3D is kind of hard to defend at times, but if I had to say a plus about that, I would say the score. I do like the score to that film, and a couple of good performances as well. But yeah, I think this is his last masterpiece. But
I would agree with that. I completely agree. This is his last masterpiece. Like, this is the end of a golden era. And like, I look at it as, you know, is life as great in your 60s as it's going to be in your 20s? No, it's not. It's just you're in the prime in one half and the other you're not. So it happens. And I agree with you. Sometimes when you set the bar so high, even if you do something good, it's lower because it's not great. You know, and every single horror filmmaker, I feel like, did this. And like John Carpenter, look at John Carpenter's films of the 90s. Are they as good as his 70s and 80s? No. George Romero? No. Wes Craven, other than Scream? No. I don't. It's just inevitable. These guys, they were in their prime then, and then when you fast forward, people say, kind of look. And I feel like Argento's the biggest victim of that. I feel like people are very harsh on Argento. And when we get into trauma, which is coming next, I think, we'll discuss, some fair and unfair, points people may have towards him. I know people hate Argento post-opera, but man, I enjoy Trauma, Stendhal, Sleepless, Card Player, Jennifer Peltz, great picks. Trauma was pretty damn good. Okay, we're about to get into that one, so stay tuned. Saw 1 and 2 definitely borrowed a lot from Argento. Yes, James Wan is a big Argento guy. You can clearly tell.
Yeah.
Jennifer is dope too. Absolutely love it. I forgot to mention Mother of Tears. That was a blast. I love Mother of Tears. Scenario at the end of the opera. It's so phenomenal. Yeah, it is. It almost, I always say it reminds me of The Sound of Music. Like, it's like, what the fuck? Like, all of a sudden, and it's gorgeous, man. I don't know. Do you have the Blu-ray of this? Because I actually don't own this.
Yeah, it's a Blu-ray from Cult Films in the UK. I'm not sure what the US one would be. Would it be
the US one? It's there's a standard one it's in print, and there's a really crazy edition that's out of print, and that one I don't have. So I used to have the DVD from Blue Underground. That was awesome, but I gave it away to a friend. Holding out for a 4K, hopefully. I don't know.
Oh, that will come, no doubt. That will definitely
I think so too. Yeah, they're starting with all the Argento stuff. The mayor's in the house. The mayor, what's up, man? I'm sure that everyone will agree with me that Argento's Dracula is his most ambitious movie of all time. I don't know about that, man. It's definitely something. Tony Lamel, please score horror movies.
Tony Iommi. I think he's on about the Black Sabbath guitarist.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. I love Italian Giallo. I need to find and watch more. Well, if you haven't seen Opera, it is on Tubi TV for free, Miss C, if you're interested.
Right. I don't know if Mrs. C is on Facebook, but if she follows me on Facebook or friends me, it's Darren Burrows. She'll find out, a lot of obscure Giallo I'll post on there and stuff. So she wants to do that.
I believe Miss C is on Facebook. She just friended me recently. So Miss C.
Oh, maybe I got her. Maybe I got her. I'm not sure. But I do, post a lot of obscure sort of Giallo films and that.
Yeah, no, you always keep me ready.
I put another plug in for Steve Benenfield and Dana that we do the podcast, the Euro Cult podcast through Dead Pit Radio. It's like tiers start at $1. You can get, but I mean, if you message me, I'll send you an MP3 for free if you want. I'll mention a lot of them in there, so.
Yeah, no, and that show's great. You, Steve, and Dana, I absolutely love it. And the Yurko show is fantastic. I'm a big fan. So, if anybody has Facebook, you can reach Darren through there. He does that awesome Eurocode show, diehard horror guy too. So he's always giving me stuff that I've never even heard of. So that's why I really wanted Darren on the show. I was like, get this knowledge on the show, man. Who knows? Dragon 3D has some beautiful vampires, a decent score, a cool dream sequence. That's about it. Yeah, no, I don't. Opera Phenomena make for a killer double feature. That would be, yeah. I don't know if I've ever watched those two back to back. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever watched.
No, me, yeah. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, it would. Dario Argento has a lot of on film snobs, critics, talent. Yeah, no, you're right. He does have talent. Agree. That's the truth. Kind of like the praying, but geez, I don't know about that. Anytime, Missy, anytime. But if closing on Opera, is there a score out of 10 that I personally give it the perfect score. I think it's 10 out of 10. I really do.
I give it 10 out of 10 on Letterboxd. I'm on Letterboxd.
All right, man. The iDevice in Opera, do you think is a reference to Clockwork Orange? Maybe. What do you think?
I haven't seen Clockwork Orange for a while, so I'm not really sure. I did watch Eyes Wide Shut back a few weeks ago, and that's got, funny enough, that's got a lot of Giallo elements at the end.
That's a great movie, Eyes Wide Shut. I know people hate that movie. I don't get it at all, man. I think that's a really holy shit movie. That's one of Kubrick's most underappreciated to me. Pronounce I-O-Me, and yes, the guitar. So okay, I'm sorry, I read it incorrectly. 10 out of 10 for Aiden. I'll look for Darren. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, nice.
So Opera, we both give it the perfect score. I highly recommend. I think it's Argento, one of his best movies, because it does, like I said, it uses a little bit of everything. It checks off all the boxes, like Darren said. The great visual, which I used as a thumbnail for this video, of the stunning Christina Marsalich in the needle trap. Very, very inspiring stuff. But After this, he collaborated with George Romero as a dual anthology, worked on Edgar Allan Poe stuff, a little movie called Two Evil Eyes, which we skipped. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I don't know what your thoughts are. I'll be honest, not one of my favorite movies. And what are your thoughts on Two Evil Eyes?
I really didn't like that film at all.
Me neither.
I watched it. I've obviously watched the two segments, and I'm obviously a Romero fan as well. But no, it just didn't. I don't know what it is. It's like like Argento's episode in that. It's just flat for me, and it's just like a cheap, almost television episode. It just didn't resonate with me at all.
I agree. Yeah, no, and it's funny because the Black Cat has had so many different adaptations. Like Fulci, Stuart Gordon. There's quite a few.
You know what my favorite Black Cat story is? Your voice is a locked room and only I have the key.
Oh shit! Okay, there you go.
By Sergio Martino. I forgot to say when it was on about underrated Giallos earlier. That's right up the top for me of non-Argento films.
No, and I believe there's a special edition of that out in the States just recently too, and that's one I've really been meaning to pick. I believe Arrow put that out, which I absolutely love Arrow. I think they're the best.
Gorgeous edition, yeah. It's on a double feature with The Black Cat by Lucio Fulci.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Miles better than Argento's story,
Yeah, no, I agree.
You mentioned Stuart Gordon there, didn't you, as well? Is that the Masters of Horror episode he did?
Yes, sir. That was the Masters of Horror episode he did. And I really like that. Jeffrey Combs.
I enjoyed that,
animator. I like that one. I would say Argento's is the weakest, which is, it kills me to say it, but it really, to me, I don't know, it just was weird. Didn't fit for me. And Harvey Keitel, weird. I like Harvey Keitel, but weird. I don't know. It didn't work. But
yeah, do you think that was more to do with like studio interference, being like he's down tools and gone to America to try and make it bigger in the big time? Because certainly that would be the case with our next film we come on to, would be Trauma. Like maybe I know Dario thought there was a lot of interference, and he like really just had enough of it in the end. That's why he went back to Italy to do Stendhal.
And thank God he did.
Whether, but I'm a big fan of Trauma. I don't see why people, don't latch onto the film at all.
Yeah, no, and I guess that's the perfect segue. In 1993, 3 years later, he made Trauma, which is this awesome new Vinegar Syndrome release. Highly recommend people pick this up. I really enjoyed this. The transfers absolutely fantastic. Ton of great special features. Highly recommend. But yes, Trauma from 1993. Now, this is considered by most to be where it all started going downhill. This is the movie where people say, well, that's where the nosedive happened. I beg to differ. I really do beg to differ. Now, I know, like you said, he had come to the United States. I believe he filmed most of this movie in Minnesota, which is weird. You think Dario Argento, Minnesota is like not one of the places Minneapolis. It's just odd, very odd. But to me, if you really watch this movie closely, and if you are a diehard Argento fan, there's a lot of it you can tell is Argento. It's not like he filmed it standard, like the opening scene of the film. It's this woman. She's a chiropractor, I believe, and a lot of it's done through the killer's point of view. She gets brutally murdered, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, this is like something out of the Bird with the Crystal Plumage. This is something out of Four Flies and Gray Velvet. This is Deep Red. The scene where the woman gets killed in like that bathhouse. That's, to me, it's clearly him. And the only thing that's really off is a couple things. Number one is the audio, because it's not recorded later. It's not ADR like in Italy. Of course, they record sound after.
Right,
and the setting. Yeah. Other than that, I think the story, the performances, the shots, the cinematography, all of that stuff feels very Argento to me. I mean, maybe the studio meddled into some stuff, but I don't see that as a crippler to this particular film. What do you think?
I think with this film, it gets a lot of critics like saying that the death scenes are all pretty much the same, where you've got the headhunter killer, and they would have liked a bit more variation. I know Tom Savini wasn't happy at all doing the film because he said he just couldn't do his creative side, wouldn't let his creative side out, because basically all he does, I think, in the film is a couple of dummy heads they look really hokey, which we'll come on to later. There's one scene that's really hokey. But in terms of the whole film in general, I think Pino Donaggio, every Argento film is up there for me, or a lot of them high 8, 9s. But I think you put that extra point on when you hear the score of these films, and this is no exception. This is fantastic. I love that Ruby Rain score.
Yeah, no, Aiden mentions that too. Ruby Rain, I love that too. See, it's funny.
Yeah.
I believe he initially, the first Clash in Styles, Argento wanted to work with Claudio Simonetti, who is probably, when it comes to Argento, my favorite composer. The studio in America, I believe, said no, and Pino Donaggio stepped in, and I don't think did a poor job with the score personally. I really like the Ruby Rain song too. I think what happens is, though, I think people hear that and just go, I don't know. This is not as Claudio Simonetti or Ennio Morricone, who, of course, works on the Stendhal Syndrome after this. But I agree. I enjoy the score. I don't think it's that bad. I do. There's a couple here and there, like the stuff with the kid, that music, the Saturday morning cartoon music, that I don't like. But the rest, I think, is really well done. And I agree. Ruby Rain is a haunting song. Do you think the cast in this movie does a good job? Because, I think you get some great standout American actors. It's interesting to see them in an Argento film. Of course, you have Brad Dourif, Chucky. You have Piper Laurie, of course, famous from Carrie. You have a lot of cool, character actors that show up in this film, and I think they did a pretty tremendous job. What do you think?
Well, to realize, like, Piper Laurie, when she was interviewed about this film, said, well, she'd done it. She just didn't take it seriously at all.
Yes.
And I don't think that comes across. I think she plays that psycho, bitch quite well. As obviously she did with Carrie. I think the lead guy, which I believe is Christopher Rydell, I think he does an excellent job.
Me too.
And again, I was a bit surprised that he didn't go on to better things, to bigger and better things. Ajo in her first, like, unless you count Demons 2 and a couple of others, this is her first major role. I do believe I think she does a good job. Again, the critics really slammed her.
And in the next film, she would redeem that. Anybody that questions her acting in the next movie we're talking about, she redeems that, in my opinion.
But they said her Romanian accent wasn't good and all that, and I just don't get that. And of course, you've got Frederick Forrest, who's another, legend. I think he does a good job as Dr. Judd. But I think Brad Dourif is severely, like, not used enough. Because I agree,
it's not enough of Brad Dourif.
He's in, exactly, any film that he's in just takes it up again for me. But that bloody hokey scene where he falls down, it's a great, it's a great idea because you've got the lift, taking the head off because the contraption don't work. And but the actual, when you see his face, it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah,
but
no.
Did you realize?
Yeah,
go on. Sorry.
It's okay.
Did you realize there's a lot of ideas recycled in this from Deep Red, because you've got the psychic at the start, where the mother's a psychic, she sees the killer or says the killer is in the room. You've got the actual decapitation of the head by lift, which happens right at the end of Deep Red, and during that scene with the lift as well with Brad Dourif, you've got like a creepy doll. So he does, recycle, but it works. For me, I don't see that as, it's old ideas and all that. I see it as, it just works for me.
I agree. Like, and if it worked in 1975, why would it not work in 1993? Yeah. I think people, what they miss is sometimes directors, they become their own biggest influence. Like, I don't know, right. Somebody mentioned Clockwork Orange before. If you notice, there's a scene in Clockwork Orange where the lead character, Alex, he's going through records, and you can see the top record is 2001: A Space Odyssey. Almost like Kubrick's like, I'm at the point now where I'm homaging myself. and Argento does that a lot too, the creepy doll. And I agree with you, that head gag, it is a little goofy. Apparently, Savini said that they shot this crazy, gory special effect and that they cut it. There's a work print version of it on this Blu-ray, and I was like, oh my God, can I finally see this scene uncut? Unfortunately, no. That footage is nowhere to be found. It's not on here on the work print. So I don't know. They did shoot it, but it's never seen the light of day, which is a shame because it would have been really cool. I can only imagine with Savini, it probably would have been spectacular.
Well, that explains why he was a bit pissed off during the making of the film.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
So we have a couple comments here. Inferno was pretty crazy. Totally. I love Trauma. I know it ain't flawless, but damn, it's a good watch. I agree with that.
Oh, good.
Trauma
Totally.
is goated. Was very happy to see Piper Laurie, as was I. I mean, granted, we didn't get too much into the story of this. It basically tells the story of Dario Argento's character, Aura, and she battles anorexia. She's run away from home. Her parents are, one of them is played by Piper Laurie. And one night she sees this crazy killer carry both her parents' decapitated heads in the pouring rain. It's a tremendous visual. I love the visual shot of her screaming in the rain and pouring down. And as the viewer, we're like, oh my God, what did we just see? And basically the rest of the film is her and this newsroom man, and they're basically trying to find the killer before the killer finds them. I really like this movie. I think it's very simple. It's old school Argento to me. It's him going back to the well. In similar vein to after Inferno, he does Tenebrae. All his critics, oh, you doing witch films? Screw that. I'll do another Giallo, and I'll do it different. And he does a really good job with that movie too. You could tell James Wan was heavily inspired by Trauma when making Malignant. Sure. Love how Dario uses color. Yeah, no, Dario Argento in color, man, that's as good as it gets to me.
This film is a lot like there's a lot of blues in this film, in there, rather than stand out like reds and the film is obviously it's made in the rain. I think the use of the rain is fantastic, and he seems to do that so well, Dario. We can film a scene in the rain, as good as anyone I've ever seen. You've got constantly rain. When the killer kills, it's when it's raining. So I thought that was a nice little touch as well. I think it's again you've got to start with the scene that you just mentioned when it looks like the killer's holding the two heads, and it's very similar to the Burglar of the Crystal Plumage, where you're seeing something and it's not quite right what you're seeing.
Yes,
and again another recycled thing, but it works again perfectly.
It works.
Keep repeating myself on that, but I think it's its only criticism for me would be that people who expect, they expect another Inferno, another, Suspiria and all that. You're not going to get that, not when he's gone to America. And he was severely pissed off as well, Dario was, with the filming of this, because he couldn't do what he wanted to do at the time. But it doesn't show. To me,
no, not at all. He said in an interview on the Blu-ray, he said that he remembers it as just a peculiar movie because it's okay. We're filming in Minnesota. Okay, this is interesting for an Argento film. A little off. Some of the, like they said, the Saturday morning music cartoons, the stuff with the kid and the lizards. That's the only part of this film I'm like, even though granted it plays a very big part in the finale, which we can spoil on here. But that stuff, like the whole scene where he goes into her house, the music was off for me. I was like, I don't know about this. This is like, if I could cut any scene out of this film, I would cut that scene. I don't care for it. Granted, it does set up the end of the film. So
it's like the stuff with the kid. It does seem a little bit like not part of the film in a way, doesn't it? It's like it's tacked on or something. I don't know. It does seem a bit strange, but it's all building up to that point where that final scene,
Yeah, and the whole idea of the killer using this like contraption to decapitate people, really cool. Because we were just talking about an opera, the whole needle to the eye thing. This I think is brilliant to use a machine that literally just cuts your fucking head off as it goes. I mean, what a fucking crazy weapon for a killer to have, and they use it a lot and to a bunch of fun in this movie. Like I really enjoy, and they have like the actors' heads like talking and shit. Like I think it was really fun. They fully utilized Tom Savini. I just wish they hadn't cut some of his stuff, but the stuff that's in there, I think it looks really, really good.
I think like I said, some of the like heads look a bit hokey as well. The dummy heads, a little bit. But in terms of the actual death scenes where they're going through the neck and stuff like that, and that earlier scene, when you've got the chiropractor getting killed, I think that's a great start. That could have been like something out of Friday the 13th for them. Do you know what I mean? It's such like an iconic slasher kill right at the start. But that's what Dario does, doesn't he? He opens his films, most of his films, with just an amazing set piece. Like, you've got the killer on the train in Sleepless and stuff like that. So he likes to have that really good opening scene. And Yeah, I just love. I coming across as a fanboy, but I just love his work.
No, man. I see, man. I'm a fanboy too, and like we can get a little bit into spoilers on this one here. So if you haven't seen Trauma, warning, you have been warned. I really like the whole twist at the end of this, and this is one that I didn't see coming, to be honest. Of course, we see Aja in that great shot in the rain, and she thinks both her parents' heads have been decapitated by the killer, and as he backs away. And like you were saying, something that we've seen isn't quite what it seems. It's Piper Laurie holding the husband's head and sticking her head out like hers is decapitated too. And she is a murderer in this movie. She's the killer. And what I think was so scary about this was the backstory. They give this whole backstory how she's giving birth in this room full of doctors, and they insinuate that they accidentally decapitate the baby. And you don't see it or anything. And granted, I'm okay with that. That's one I don't need a visual. But it's really fucking effective because all the doctors freak out. And I think the one that his performance is the best is Brad Dourif. Because they're all like, we have to do electroshock. We'll all go to jail. We'll all go to jail. And he is just horrified. And you could see in later scenes how it completely fucked him up for life. Like he looks like a demented Chris Kattan in this movie. Like he looks like absolutely like he's on pills or something. But man, I think that scene in the hospital delivery room, that is some scary fucking shit when you watch it. It's bizarre.
It's horrific, isn't it? It's like when you first watch that, and you think, bloody hell, did he go? Even though like you say, you don't show you don't want to see all the head coming off the baby or anything. I think that would have been a step too far. But, the old setup and all and the payoff of that being the payoff is fantastic. It's as good as any of his payoffs.
And one I didn't see coming, and like basically the whole finale is Dario Argento and the lead guy, and they're in this cage, and Piper Laurie's kind of cutting her heel promo, and the kid lowers down the fucking device that she's been killing, and it kills her. And they had this whole thing too with her, like she was claustrophobic, so she wouldn't let them cast her head. So Savini shot it in a different way to do the camera roll, and very interesting to see how that all came to be. But I don't know. Piper Laurie is a villain. Fantastic. I think she's very colorful, animated. Aja, I agree. She's more beauty in this movie than acting. And especially, I don't know if we should discuss this because this is a big controversy from this movie. There is a scene of Dario Argento naked in this film.
Yeah.
Granted, very briefly. But she has since stated that it has gone on to fuck her up in later years. What do you think about that, man? Do you think Argento should not have done it? Granted, I know this was written with another actress in mind, not Aja, but they ended up keeping it in. What do you think about that?
Right. I think that at first it was Bridget Fonda was going to get cast. I think it is a little fucked up, to be honest.
Me too.
I couldn't, I've got a son, I haven't got a daughter, but I couldn't envisage, taking a topless, shot of my daughter. Like, it seems very strange. Did he actually do that? Did he actually film that, or did someone else do it?
So the whole story is he went to her and said, "Listen, we're gonna film this. This is here." He said, "Are you comfortable with it?" And she said, "Sure, it's fine, no problem." And so it was him, her, and I think the director of photography in the same room, and she shows her gigantic voluptuous boobies, which I'm fine with, but it's odd to know that your fucking dad was the one filming this. Like, you're like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, but not to jump too far ahead, but then you've got the rape scenes in Stendhal. So, yeah, it's mad when you think about it, but I think you got a bit of stick for that. He must have.
Yeah.
But sticking with Trauma though, it's a really good film. I think it's like very underrated. And now that this new Blu-ray's out as well, hopefully it's going to reach a lot more people.
Yeah,
because I was in funny enough, I was in the Dead Pit chat the one night, and I think you had Michael Felcher on, Mike Felcher and that. And then we were all like asking, or I was asking, where's Trauma? Where's Trauma? Why in haven't got a Blu-ray release? And he, like Michael Felcher does, he just popped it off. Oh, we don't know, who's got it, or it's been a problem. And then within weeks, then it was like, announced. extras and everything. So I know CK was a bit gutted over that. He thought Michael Phelps might have given him a
No, there's a lot
exclusive,
of people
but
that
I
don't like
understand.
this. A lot. I mean, we're in the minority on this one for sure. I know people like Stendhal. I know people like that love opera, but this one is like one of the black sheep. It's like the first black sheep of his career. People just don't like this movie for whatever reason. I guess it's the
Yeah, I
American
don't get
setting.
that.
I don't either. I don't really either. Okay. Some of the music choices bother me. That's about the end of my gripes, though. Like the acting's tremendous. I think the pacing is good enough. Cinematography, like you said, the usage of the color blue, really good. I think. So we have Mateo says he agrees with us. Trauma, very good movie. Delicate themes touched in the story. Awesome killing device, but the severed head screaming down the elevator ruined for me. Sorry.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Totally agree with you.
It's a little goofy. It's I won't
But
lie, I laughed the first time I saw it,
yeah,
but it will
it
take
does
you out
take
of
you
the
out.
film.
Yeah, it does. What do you feel about the old love aspect? This is because there's quite a touching love story in there. I know it's again a bit iffy with her age, and we don't know what is it. His age is. We presume he's about 30, and she's 16. So that
Man,
was again a bit iffy for the time,
yeah, and
maybe.
what's weird is, I mean, I don't want to go down this road, but if you know the whole Asia Argento scandal from a few years ago
Yeah,
with her and the kid she directed in the film, it's
that's right. Yeah,
actually very weird. Like when I watched this last time, I was like, oh my god, it was like this is a little like
yeah. It's
the
sort of turned round, doesn't it? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very
it
strange.
weird, but it sort of did, man. I don't know, but I don't mind it. I think that both actors do a good job. I didn't really look at it like that personally, but I could see how somebody
No.
would. I think that she's sweet in this movie. I thought he was sweet in this movie. They had a decent enough chemistry.
Oh, there's
Um,
good chemistry there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I don't actually think that he was. He could easily have gone for like 20. Well, say 25. I don't think he was like 30. So that would have made it a little bit
yeah, and they
easier.
also give you the idea that he really is just looking out for her. Like he's with this other
Yeah,
woman from the most of the beginning, and he's like, "Listen, she's a good kid. I'm trying to take care of her, trying to help her." Like you get the
yeah.
sense that this is not like a sleazeball. Like this is a good guy that's trying to help her, and he does. And it's I don't know. I think it's a nice, sincere little story. I also I really like. I didn't know this. At the end, they show this woman on a porch, and she's dancing.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
actually his half daughter, I believe, right?
I
Wasn't it?
think it's Dario Nicolodi's half. Dario Nicolodi's daughter, which would have been from an early relationship before Dario,
That's
and
right.
so that would have been Asia's half sister. And she's dancing, and that's like really weird because that reggae music at the end just doesn't go, does it, with the film at
No,
all?
there's some weird music choices in this.
But didn't she die as well, like a year after the film was
So
made?
it's crazy. So Aura, the character Agia plays, she is an anorexic in this film.
That's right.
Granted,
Yeah,
you take one look at those boobs, there's no way. But
yeah, yeah,
that's besides the point. But the stepsister, she in real life suffered from anorexia, and sadly, she recovered from it, and sadly ended up dying in a car accident the next year this movie was released in 1994.
crazy
So
man.
sadly, she got into a car accident and passed away. And it's weird. This movie is almost like a eulogy for her. Like that's the way I look at it, at
Yeah,
least, because you're talking about somebody who suffered through anorexia, and she's the lead of this movie. And at the end, you see her dancing and stuff, and then she goes on to die just a short year later. It's sort of like a eulogy, and I don't know. It's
it
like
must
it's
it must be
nice.
really hard for Asia to watch, or Dario. I know it obviously wasn't Dario's daughter, but it must be a hard thing to watch that back on film.
Yeah,
After that.
absolutely. I would be heartbroken. I mean, but I also at the same time, it's nice to me that it's in there. It's almost like it's sometimes at the end of movies they'll put this movie is made in tribute to so and so. That you could
Yeah,
easily put that in here because it was because it was about her. The whole character was based off of her, played by Asia, and then at the end they throw her in as a cameo. I thought that was really nice that he kind of had that for his daughter.
yeah.
But it is. I definitely understand. People say it is a peculiar film. It is. The Horror Boy's in the house. Horror Boy, what's up, man? Grande's Graveyard and Murphy's Mortuary live at the same night. Yeah, and Horror Boy will be live later with the Last House on the Left commentary. That'll be super cool. Going great, man. Bro, Tenebrae is my favorite Argento film. It has everything. Ooh, very cool choice. Very cool one. Deep Red is great. Suspiria is great. Still need to see more, dude. Opera. Okay, I gave the DVD to Opera to him, so that's pretty funny. Just going through. Love how Argento uses rain and fog and trauma. It's short. In short, it's a stunning film to look at. Yes, it is. It really is. I think a very stunning film. Sorry, we have a ton of comments here. Deep Red was one of my first Italian Giallo horror films. I get mixed up on the differences between Italian and Giallo. I was only recently informed there is a difference. Oh, well, like I said, friend Darren, he will show you the difference, man. He is the #1 Giallo fan that I know.
There's a few, like there's stuff like Pieces and Stage Fright that you could class as a Giallo and a slasher. So yeah, there's a lot of them. Blade in the Dark.
Yeah, for years I remember people saying, "Oh, Suspiria is a great Giallo." I'm like, not really. It's not.
See,
yeah,
I'm for that. See, I actually think there's a lot of Giallo elements in Suspiria that I do kind of class it as a Giallo. I know that's not everyone's opinion, but
it has the elements for sure. I agree with that. It's not like, to me, it's like Giallo, it's the black glove killer. But then again, what I learned from you was the Umberto Lindsay when I watched Orgasmo, that doesn't have the black glove killer, and it's completely different Giallo, but it has those elements. So that's interesting because it's a hard thing to define absolutely.
But what I would say with the Lindsay films, I know you prefer the black glove kill and all that, but I will say keep giving them repeat watches, because there's something in there like the murder mystery element or whatever, and it might grow on you a bit more. But I know you like them, but I don't think you love them, do you?
Yeah, no, I'll be honest. Like I certainly, that just threw me for a loop. I guess I expected one film and got another. I don't think I disliked it. It was just sometimes that happens, and I think that's what happens with certain people that go into a certain film thinking they're going to get one thing, they get another, and automatically, I don't like because it wasn't what I expected. That doesn't necessarily mean it was bad. It just okay, it wasn't what you expected. It was something that's a big thing. With Malignant, people went in thinking, this is going to be The Conjuring, and it wasn't. It was something completely different, and I think people really turn on the film. That happens. Even though this ain't my favorite Argento film, I have to admit The Killer's Twist is my favorite thing Argento has done. It's batshit insane. I agree. I think it's pretty batshit insane.
Yeah, totally agree.
It's well executed. Okay, let me get Hapshida mentions, Azia. Yep, that's something.
But there's a scene in the film as well where Argento's Aura sends him leaves him a message saying that she's going to join her mother. I think Argento tackles that really well, because it's quite touching. It's a really touching scene where he goes then to look in the river to whether she's killed herself, and then he falls back then to being into a drug addict. I think you don't see that a lot in an Argento film, where it'd be quite sentimental. I think he really does that well. And I thought it was quite a really touching scene. That I really enjoyed that. I think the actual love story between the two is great. Done much. I know you get in Deep Red, you got the two love interests, and you got Dario and Nickelodeon, and you got David Hemmings. So it's kind of that, but that's a bit more comedy. But this is really more heartfelt. I thought, and I can't think of another film that he's done that in.
I agree.
Bit, player, maybe the card player, maybe a couple.
I appreciate the sentimental value. I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's interesting, because that's not. You're right. That's something he didn't do that much, but it was pretty well done, and that speaks to the actors. Good chemistry,
Yeah, definitely.
Bloodbound Productions in the house. What's up, buddy? The Master of Fears here. Got a phone call. I'm back now. Excellent. And the Soulless Trenchcoat's in the house. Trenchy, what's up, brother? We are moving on to our next movie now. So, a few years after, in my birth year of 1996, Dario Argento made this little gem. It is the
God, you're making me feel old now.
Oh, no, never. But it's cool. It's a birth year with this movie. I don't know.
It's hard. It's hard to believe. I sometimes have trouble believing you're your age, because you're so knowledgeable that you probably know more than a bloody 40 or 50-year-old, for horror. I really admire that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
He's only young, but you know your stuff, man.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think I fell in love with it at the right age, and it's like, people around here, man, there's so few people that love horror, like especially like by me, people don't care about it. They just don't. A lot of this stuff I just watch alone, and I love it, and I do my research, and I don't know, it's something. It's just a passion like anything else, but it just really grew on me, And like I know you're a big, I believe, aren't you? You're a big football fan, right?
Yeah, I support Spurs like over in the UK. Yeah, massive football fan, but
Billiards too.
yeah, pool. I don't play so much now, but my son plays a lot of money matches and stuff, tournaments.
Oh, really? That's cool. Yeah, no, I love
Yeah.
pool, man.
Oh, I used to be big into 8-ball pool.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it.
You're a big American football fan, you know?
Yeah, I'm big baseball and American football. Those are like my two favorite sports. And I used to be a huge wrestling fan. Now, not so much. I just
I've never got into wrestling. Never got into it, but I'm starting to watch because now on over here in the UK, we got like a live show every Monday night of the the American football. I started, watching a bit of that. To liking, starting to get into it a bit.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, that's
I
really
like
cool.
to have a bet as well. So.
Oh yeah, didn't you bet the Super Bowl with me one year? Didn't we bet the Chiefs?
Yeah, you give me the tip, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, we
paid for a night out. You did.
Dude, I got you, man. You were like, anybody have an idea? I was like, bro, go Chiefs with me. And sure enough, won the bowl, man. That was amazing. Do you classify Malignant and Last Night in Soho as Giallos or Giallo inspiration? I wouldn't say. Maybe Malignant's more of a Giallo, but Last Night in Soho is not a Giallo. What do you think?
Oh, see, I would disagree there. I would say Malignant has got a lot of Giallo elements, which I love. The music is fantastic, very Giallo-like. I would say the last sort of half hour, 45 minutes of Last Night in Soho is definitely Giallo for me. I was blown away by that film. I know I don't want to be biased because it's UK or anything, but that for me was the best film of 2021.
I loved it. That the way it used
totally
colors and music and the performances.
Oh,
I love Last Night in Soho. I thought it was wonderful.
But that's another one. Why is it getting so much bad press and critics? Like, okay, I don't understand it?
I didn't know it was.
Yeah, there's very mixed response. There's a lot of people that I've seen in the YouTube community that just don't rate it at all. I was amazed.
I don't see. Sometimes, Darren, I don't know what people want. I really don't. Like to me, I don't see how you could watch that movie and be a fan of like Argento films, like we're talking about. Like it has so many of those elements to me. And I think it was just a beautiful movie all around. It really did. And Malignant, I can because it has some Frank Henenlotter stuff in there. Like that's the end of that movie becomes like Basket Case almost. Like that's why I like. But yeah, it's a little bit of everything. That's why I like. I would say they both have a lot of Giallo inspiration. I don't know if I could classify either as a straight up Giallo, but like again, like we were saying with the definition, it changes. Like Suspiria, I don't know, but like you said, you can consider it one. It's not like absolute.
Well, you could sort of argue that Last Night in Soho, like, could be a slasher film. There's an argument for that as well.
Yeah, but I don't think I would consider it one. Would you?
Again, I'd say elements, but I wouldn't consider it an out slasher, like,
Yeah.
I think the blonde girl, what's her name in that?
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, I think she's fantastic.
She is. She was also the witch.
Yeah. I think she's going to be a massive talent.
I think so too. She's going up the ladder for sure. I don't think I've ever seen a Dario Argento film. Trenchy, brother. Trenchy. We recommend all three of these. Opera's free on Tubi. Get to it, brother, man. Do not hesitate. Trauma's my personal favorite. Argento of the 90s, but Stendhal is without a doubt better. I like Stendhal better too. We'll get there. We're going to start right now. Why Argento does a very bad use of CGI. Sorry to say that, but it feels like he got lazy. I think and this film does have the only negative, my opinion, is the CGI.
Yeah.
I think it was the new kid on the block at the time, and that's why this particular movie has bad CGI. But when you get the stuff like Dracula 3D, that's when it's like, okay, I don't know. I don't know if maybe he was getting lazy, but tell me, man, Stendhal Syndrome, what are your initial thoughts on this little movie?
Yeah, I like it a lot. I'd say it's definitely his best film in the 90s by a country mile, I would say. I wouldn't quite class it as a masterpiece, but I don't think it's far, behind. I think it's like this one, I don't know how you would describe it. It's like basically like this girl, and it's in some ways like a maniac, where it's, you can see everything going through from early on, where she, I don't know if you want to go into the plot, that sort of art gallery scene where it just sees the demise of her character throughout the whole film. I think this is Dario Argento at her very best. I think she's never been better. And, without going off on a tangent, but when she cuts her hair short, oh, that's just Dario looking at her finest for me. She looks hot. I don't think she's ever looked better, even though they say she looks like a boy in the film, which is funny. But yeah, I would rank this like definitely in my top 10, but not quite in my top 5 Argento. If that makes sense. It's definitely 6 or 7, something like that.
Yeah.
How would you rate this film?
I would be around
how
there.
would you rank this film?
It would definitely be in my top 10 Argento films for sure, and my favorite of the 90s. I agree with that. It's a very interesting movie to me for Argento to tackle because, of course, this was the return to Italy. And you get a lot of different, you get Rome in this movie. You get a few different locations, and it is a gorgeous film. I wanted to make sure I got the cinematographer's name because Giuseppe Rotunno, he does a tremendous job in this movie. Of these 3 movies, he might be my favorite when it comes to the cinematography. It basically tells the story of Dario Argento. She plays this female police chief, and we follow her, like you said, in the opening shot in this museum. Just very Argento-like, just looking at paintings and zooming in. And there's this weird scene where all of a sudden she's underwater and she smooches a fish. Weird, but I love it. And, you basically get underway where she's tracking down this serial killer / rapist. And lo and behold, she becomes a victim herself and thus raises the stakes, makes it a little bit more personal. And the film kind of plays out from there. Now, this movie, it is sporadic. It is, a lot to digest. And it is very much more narrative driven as opposed to visually driven. But that's not to say that the visuals aren't there. I love the visuals in this. There's a great scene where Asia, she's returned from the museum. She's confused and she's looking at this painting at the wall. And all of a sudden it becomes like this dark night. And she steps out and she's at a crime scene. Yeah, amazing. I love that transition. And the cinematographer in this, Mr. Giuseppe Rotunno, he shoots black nights. That's the color of this movie. It's pitch black. That's why I really enjoy this film. This is not a more artsy effort from Dario. This is a dark film because it's discussing a dark subject matter, of course, of being a raped victim and the post-traumatic stress that comes with that. And I think Asia is great in this. She basically playing like 3 different roles in one movie. She starts off one character, she's, then traumatized, and then towards the end, there's kind of a crazy twist. And I think the range she shows in this movie is absolutely inspiring. I love it. I think it's fantastic. And there's quite a few scenes I definitely want to run through with you. I love the scene in the museum where she's looking at the painting and like she almost steps into it. Like, isn't that beautiful, man? Like, I thought that was great.
For the time, I would imagine that was quite, out there for the time. I don't know, it's always something, good in an Argento film at the start. I mean, again, he starts off this film great. Like you say, she walks in, comes like through to like a crime scene. And then in one scene, she actually goes back, through the door again.
Yes.
It's just fantastic. such a vision, such a style and such a vision to this film is incredible.
The
But
waterfall, like that's just beautiful when she
yeah,
goes in the museum and that waterfall, like just wow, amazing.
and like to have, I think it's like the French Revolution at the start of the film, where that is this film, isn't it? Yeah, and yeah, just you get all the noises as well, where she's in these paintings, and yeah, I'm not even sure if the Stendhal Syndrome is actually a real thing. I don't know if you've done any research or.
I believe there was a novel, and Argento had read the novel and was like, "Let me make
Oh
this into."
right, yeah, yeah. Sorry,
I
yeah,
believe
yeah,
that's where this came from, at least.
yeah. Fantastic idea, and like you say, he just nails it. I think totally. Um, going on to the cast, the killer. I think he's played by Thomas Kretschmann. Reminds me a lot of like Silence of the Lambs. He's brutal, like Buffalo Bill or someone like that.
Yeah,
And interesting, this would have been what 4 or 5 years after that film, and it does give me that vibe of Silence of the Lambs a lot. It's definitely I think one of the most brutalist killers he's had in a film. With the rape aspect, just puts it up a level, doesn't it? But the
yeah.
violence up to a very high level.
And
Um,
the
but yeah,
gunshot through the face. I mean, that's just and he looks through the peephole of the gunshot through the girl's face. I mean, horrifying. He's just
yeah,
laughing about it. I mean, and they
yeah,
really, I think they made a good casting choice because this guy, he looks very like, I don't think you would ever think, like he's just blonde hair, blue eyes, doesn't look like, but I think it was very
yeah.
intentional. I think it was just like saying like anybody could be a monster. And this guy does a really good job in the performance as playing this really sleazy, dirty, evil serial killer rapist. I mean, he gives a really tremendous performance in my opinion. It's scary.
Oh yeah, he's a total psychopath, because you see the two sides to him at the start of the film when he offers Argento, he gives her the money for the taxi, and he comes across like you say, no one knows, what a killer really looks like. Could be anyone, like you say, but he does put you in a false sense of security. And then with that scene as well, a bit later on, we work out why she goes to, the art gallery. And I thought that was quite clever as well. The
Yeah.
way the killer, disguises his voice on the phone.
Yeah, which was really cool. And that same year
To lure
Scream.
her there, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which is
I thought,
crazy. I mean, and they're actually, and I wanted to make sure we mention this. There's a line, like you mentioned, when he was with Aja in the taxi. There's a great line in there that I think is Argento kind of commentating on, his career and others' careers. He says, good works of art have power over people. And he says, great works of art have great power over people. And that's really
yeah,
like one of the standout lines of this movie because it's true. It's like,
yeah.
Suspiria is your all-time favorite film. It has a great power over you. It just encapsulates everything that you want to see in a movie. And I love that he kind of breaks the fourth wall there. I thought that was kind of a cool line. Like I was like, oh man, I was like, I wonder if that's a little bit of a, acknowledging his own career, how his works of art have had, this tremendous, profound effect on us as viewers. And I think that's really true here. What did you think though, man? Because there's the scene where of course, he captures Asia and ties her to this bed. I think that's just horrific, but it's so well done.
Yeah, it's like really creepy as well. Like the location as well. I think it's like next to like the waterfall, is there? Or and like repeated, rape of a film. What was it, 1997? So I would imagine that was a bit iffy at the time as well. Um, but yeah, like Dario, like directing his daughter getting raped. I know we touched upon that earlier, but yeah, that's pretty weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of knocks you back a bit. You don't think it could get any worse, after trauma. But yeah, um, but I love the film. I actually love the film. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a real like return to form after where he's gone back from America and he's thought because he's absolutely gutted. He's gone, oh, forget America now, concentrate on what I do well, and that's the Giallo film. Would you class this as an out and out Giallo though?
See, it's funny, and you talk to a lot of people about this movie. They'll say, "Oh, that's Argento's rape revenge movie." I hear that there are elements of that, but no, I think this movie is I think it's just a grand film. There's a lot of this.
Yeah.
There's really great dramatic elements, I think, in this. It doesn't in spots. It feels like a drama. Like when she goes back home after being raped and she wants to be with her family, that feels like a drama. That whole, her, trying to fight and painting, and that just feels like a very sad drama movie. And then there's the rape revenge elements, of course, when she is tied to this bed and gets her revenge, her bloody revenge. I love that scene. I think that's such a satisfying scene. She shoots him in the stomach, stabs him in the his eye gets all fucked up. I mean, she does everything and throws him in the river and good riddance. Like, it's such a satisfying scene. You're like, fuck yes, like she got her revenge. But again, I don't think I'd classify this as a straight up rape revenge movie. I don't think elements of this Giallo, totally. Like the scene where the killer, he goes and finds that woman who's working at the department store, and we see it all through his perspective, and she's talking. We don't hear anything he says. That's something straight out of Tenebrae. Like towards the beginning with Ennio Morricone, when she gets killed, that's something straight out of that movie. So there are those elements. Again, I think this and opera, like we were saying before, it's a little bit of everything. It's grand. It's a very grand movie. I think he used a lot of different, but I like the dramatic elements and the rape revenge elements. I think that what a different thing for Argento to tackle. Like I think it's.
I wonder why people didn't take to this film as well, like so much, because maybe of the rape elements, or were they going back and expecting another opera as his last like Italian film? So I don't know why. This is not a film like you say because of such a bad subject matter with the rape. It's not a type of film you could just throw on at any given time and watch, like you could with opera, say. So maybe that hurt it in the box office, and maybe the critical acclaim.
And maybe
it's not highly regarded at all. This film, I was surprised.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. I never really thought of that. Like trauma. I get it. I get why people don't flock to Trauma, even though I like the film. Yeah. I get if someone said, "Hey, I'm not into it." I get that. Stendhal is, on the other hand, I don't really get it. Like, what is there not to like? The music from Ennio Morricone is fantastic. The cinematography is fantastic. The acting is fantastic. I think maybe because, Darren, this is much more of a plot narrative-driven Argento film, whereas a lot of his movies, they're not very plot or narrative-driven. Like Suspiria, sometimes you just watch that movie and you get lost in it because it's just so fucking beautiful and mesmerizing, and the plot almost plays third fiddle in that movie. But with this is, you really have to pay attention to the plot and to the dialogue, and there's a lot of very intense scenes and performances in this movie. I don't know. I think maybe it's just very heavy for people. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just people can have fun with an opera. They can't have as much fun with this. This is not a fun film at all. It's a very serious film, but I think it's this very well done movie. I have to ask this, when it comes to this point in his career, do you think this was an interesting choice for him? Do you think this was the right choice for him? Because I know we like the movie, but do you think he should have tried something like this later in career, or do you think he maybe should have went back, try to play it safe?
I think in some ways, I think this is like him just going out on a limb, innit? Like say he could have made another opera or another just standard sort of slasher or Italian, Giallo. But I think he wanted to do something different, and he just went all out on a limb, and that's the film you get, sort of thing. But you don't sort of hold back in this film. I think every sort of idea he had, he uses, and he exploits it really well. Like you say, the film has so much depth. It's not just your standard thriller or Giallo or anything like that. But knowing what was to come after, like I think it was Phantom of the Opera.
Yes, it was.
Like I don't want to go off tangent or anything, but what was your thoughts on that, just briefly?
One of my least favorite Argento films, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. It just doesn't work, does it, at all? As like like a musical theme film, And I think because you got opera, when we got opera, that film doesn't work. if you know what I mean. We got like a good Phantom of the Opera from 1925 if you want to watch that, instead or whatever, But yeah, this film, though, going back to Stendhal, it's just one that I just think can just grow in popularity. Have you got a decent Blu-ray release over there?
I do. I have the 3-disc special edition from Blue Underground.
Oh, see, I want
Highly
that.
recommend people get this. This is one of my favorites. I own my collection. It's a amazing transfer. They have a ton of different audio selections on this. I watched this last night. I watched the Italian version. I'm big. I like to hear the real actors' voices. I think it can sometimes take away if it's a dub, especially if it's a poorly done dub. Granted, the English dub of this, I've watched it. It's not terrible. But this movie, I think, is just tremendous. This edition is great. So many great special features. They have an interview with Dario and Asia. And Asia discusses how, this is her favorite film and performance of her entire career. And I completely agree. And
Oh, yeah, totally.
Getting into slight spoilers with this, because this is something I wanted to discuss with you guys. So again, once again, everybody, with Stendhal, if you haven't seen it, we're going to spoil some stuff. Of course, after she gets her revenge, you're an hour into the film. This is a 2-hour movie. Where do we go from here? Some of the post-traumatic stress of being a rape victim, and then ultimately you learn to find out that Asia has become a killer herself. And it's tremendously done. I love how this scene is done. There's a psychiatrist she's talking with throughout the film, and that's where we get the Stendhal Syndrome and the explanation of that. Towards the end of the movie, he comes to her house, and he knows, and he's like, listen, the jig's up. And there's this great scene where they cut, and then when they cut back, he's dead. And this other guy who she had a previous relationship, he runs in, and he realizes too. He goes, I don't believe you. And there's this great cinematography shot of just Dario Argento's eyes and just blackness, above and below, just her eyes as she's pleading. He tried to rape me too. And you learn that she is somehow, some way become the very thing that she killed and destroyed. She's become a murderer. And it's just so heartbreaking. But I love that storytelling of Asia's confused eyes and how that's done with cinematography. I think that's just textbook Dario Argento, how it works. And it's a really, really heartfelt performance, I think, because you start with one character, you transform to another, and then by the end it's 3 different characters and 3 different hairstyles, right? The long brown, the short hair, which you like, and then the blonde, which granted the wig looks fake, but she looks good as a blonde too. Fuck. It's a tremendous, like, from when you start to where you end, you're like, wow, like this character did like 2 360s. It's tremendous, man. What do you think of the ending of this movie?
Right, yeah, because like you say, you watch the film, you're like 70 minutes in and that, and then we come to the conclusion of the killer, and then like you say, you're thinking, well, where do we go from here? In terms of her turning into the killer, you've got a scene where she goes to see her new French boyfriend. I didn't like understand what was going on. I never guessed she was the killer.
Me neither.
In the second half of the film, I didn't think that he would have survived that waterfall. I thought they may be going to go like the copycat killer route, maybe.
Yeah.
So I thought that's what we were going to get into. But yeah, she comes into her own in the second part of the film. Like you say, in some ways you can't really, you don't condone her being a killer, but you can see what she's gone through to become a killer. And you've got some sort of sympathy with her. And the same for Opera Mind, which I didn't pick up on earlier. The killer at the end of Opera, when he's in the Alps and the police are punching him, and I give sympathy for him in a way because of, it was her mother that actually had him as a slave. I don't want to touch back too much, and that. So Argento in this film, then again, how do you read the ending? Because when she's being taken away by the police at the end, do you think they're going to be more sympathetic with her because of what she's gone through, or do you think she's just going to get thrown into jail and that'll be it? Because she does become unhinged, like maybe insane. Who knows?
I enjoy them doing that. Like I think it's interesting to do a killer like that, and like I know a lot of people disagree. They like black and white. They don't like gray area when it comes to villains. I like the gray area because it's like we saw who she was at the beginning of this film. We see her character and what she becomes towards the end. You're right. How could a part of your heart not go out and feel bad? Because she really was morphed. She was turned into this monster by this serial killer that raped her and completely ruined her life. When she's crying in that guy's arms and they're kind of walking away, you do feel bad. Granted, she's done some horrible things. She killed her lover. She killed the psychiatrist. She kills the guy that was previously her lover. I mean, she's done some heinous, horrible things. But I think when you add gray area, it really blurs the lines. And as a viewer, it tears you apart. And to me, it invests me. I don't know how you feel about gray area villains, but like people bash the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. You know, like Doc Ock at the end, he says to him something like, you know, you once spoke to me about intelligence and how it's supposed to be used for the good of mankind. And look at what these things have made you. It's made you something you're not. And he turns good and saves the city. People don't like that. I do, because I don't think it is all black and white. I think in reality, there is a lot of gray area. And Asia, she hits every single color there is to hit, man. And I think the performance is just absolutely phenomenal. What are your thoughts though on gray area villains? Do you like them, dislike them? What is your preference?
I'm with you. I like them a lot because we can all they can all be predictable. And then how many times have we seen a slasher film or whatever, a film, and it's just been predictable all the way through. So I like the fact that they go like left field with this, and it's not, like you say, it's not black and white. And I think a film like Dario must have been sort of still experimenting with stuff, because he could have just gone the normal route. He could have padded out that first 70 minutes into an hour and a half film. But to go that, it just took me by surprise. I think it took everyone by surprise. I don't know anybody who's first seen the film and thought, she's going to be the one who's going to be the killer at the end.
No.
But like you say, what a performance from the girl. I mean, it's by far her best ever. I don't see how she can top that. She probably won't now because she's getting on a bit. But it brings her, like, I think Argento, even though some people were saying he's on the slide at this time, I don't particularly believe that. I think his slide came after Sleepless, because I'm a big fan of Sleepless. But I think the two of them come together and it just makes for, just spellbinding film and conclusion and everything.
And I think, and I'll ask you this question too, because we like Suspiria, we like Jessica Harper, we like Deep Red, we like David Hemming. I will say, though, I will go out on a limb and say this, and I ask you, do you think this is the best performance from a lead actor in an Argento film? Because I would say yes. Honestly, I would say yes.
Right, that's a very good question. It's definitely up there. I'm trying to think now offhand. I do like the killer from Tenebrae, the American guy. I think he does, But Dario sort of fell out with a lot of his lead actors for some reason to try and get a better performance. But looking at it now, I'm trying to think through. Yeah, I can't see a better performance from anyone as a lead in one of his films, to be honest. That is it. Anthony, is it Franciosa from Tenebrae? I think
yes, I know what you're talking about. I also like Jennifer Connelly in Phenomena, but
God, we haven't spoken about that, have we?
Phenomena I love, but this performance, I think it's just so great because it's so, there's so much that goes into it. Really, it must have been, I don't know how she was okay after this, like, because there's so much heart given to this movie. Aiden says the ending of Stendhal is bleak and heartbreaking. Yeah, it is. It really, as the credits roll, you're like, oh man, like you sort of feel bad. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, because you're rooting for her all the way through after she gets raped and all that. And I just remember watching it when I first watched it and first seeing her that she was a killer. I was like open mouthed. I was like gobsmacked. I thought,
me too, man. Same here.
He's had me there, Dario. And I don't know. Yeah, it's one of his films. It's not, it's not a Deep Red. It's not, Bird with Crystal Plumage or anything like that. But it's one that needs to be seen more by more people.
Yes.
And it's good to be on a show like this with yourself and, the Eurocult podcast and stuff, to try and bang over these films, get more, youngsters and more people into them, because, I do feel this film has got a bit more mileage in it. I think could get a lot of bigger fan base as time goes on, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and thank you for the kind words. I agree with you. I think that's, you say it's not a deep red, it's not a Suspiria, it's not, and it doesn't have to be. That's the beauty, and I think that's
right.
sometimes what happens with people. They hear Dario Argento, they expect one thing, and then you get all the complex themes of this movie, and I think maybe that is a turnoff. I mean, Matteo says here, I'm glad Argento went a bit sideways with Stendhal, but it was a flop. Therefore, go back to Giallo Sleepless. I know a lot of Argento fans that feel that they don't like the new directions this movie took, and they wish he had played it more safe, like Granted, Sleepless, I think, is fantastic, and I love that Blu-ray from Scorpion releasing. That's one of the best Blu-ray transfers I've ever seen of a movie. It's phenomenal. I love Sleepless, too.
I think we're in the minority, though, then, because I've seen a few comments and stuff. I think me and you are in the minority. I think people don't really warm to this film at all, do they? Like we do. And that's fine, everyone's got their own opinion and stuff. I can't say that someone's wrong or whatever, but I'm with you. I like the diversity. I like the actual, there's a bit more in there than just a straight out slasher or giallo killer. There's more to it. And I
exactly.
I just love that.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's just like sometimes when you have a truly great director or artist, you want them to expand their palette. Like if Dario Argento for the rest of his career, for every movie in his career, just made giallo films, would they have been fantastic? Absolutely. He made so many great ones, but we wouldn't have had Suspiria. We wouldn't have had Inferno. We wouldn't have had a Phenomena. We wouldn't have had a Stendhal Syndrome. So I'm glad that he tried to venture to different stuff, but Matteo's right. It is a flop. I mean, I don't believe the movie was yeah. So, I mean, that's a shame, but people grow to expect one thing from you, and that's maybe why, like we were talking about Malignant, people see James Wan, they expect that haunted house thriller, and they didn't get that. And I think people just completely, I remember the theater I was at, people were like, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit, it wasn't The Conjuring. I was like, why did it have to be? Like, I don't know, it boggles the mind, man. Stendhal Syndrome is like a giallo killer origin story. That's a way to look at it. Stendhal, it could be a ripoff of Tenebrae a little bit, victim becoming a killer. Maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see that a little bit. And again, that's a film we need to cover. If ever you want to do that again, I would love to do Tenebrae. With Dario, it's always a twist. I find his twists are always like superb. Like we said, the one, from earlier from Trauma, where, hence the name of the film with the baby. There's always something like that, and it's always clever. It's always well researched and clever. And these films, you can pick holes in a lot of these films, but like you said earlier, people watch a Dario Argento film, not really so much for logic. I don't. But he does play it quite straight with this one, doesn't he?
Sure.
This is played totally straight compared to his other films.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. Absolutely. Apparently, The Card Player was intended to be a sequel to Stendhal Syndrome, and I have to ask, what would you have thought of Ozzy Argento's character returning? Honestly, no, I wouldn't have done it, and here's why. I love the ending of this film, and I love what Darren said before is we don't know what, because honestly, none of these murders were witnessed by these people at the end holding her. I think they can make the conclusion that she's been doing the killing because they find the body. I'm assuming she's going to spend some time, but it's also the looks on all their faces. They feel terrible. And they're like, we're not going to hurt you. We're not going to hurt you. But you could see she's totally gone. I think her story ends here. I'm just one of those people. I wouldn't have liked that personally. But what do you think?
No, the same probably. I think because it's such an open ending, she either goes to prison or she'll end up in a mental institution. I can't see a way they could have done that. Yeah. I would love to have seen Asia do another film, sort of another straight up giallo, and like Sleepless, because there's a lead girl in Sleepless who looks a little bit like Asia. I don't know if you noticed that. So I'd love to have seen her another straight up Giallo. But maybe that's what we're getting because she's in the new film. So apparently,
I was
this
just
new
going to say,
film,
I think the same. I think it would be
there's
really cool.
there's supposed to be a 45-minute hour chase sequence in this new film, Black Glasses. So I'm looking forward to that. And I don't care if it's great or whatever, as long as it's entertaining. I'll take that.
Yeah, and it's
it can't be as bad as Dracula, can it?
well, let's hope not. I don't know, man. For me, it's like it's nice to see he's still working because I'm such a big fan. But like we were saying before, we don't expect fucking Suspiria with this new movie. Like, granted, I hope it's good. I hope it's better than Giallo and Dracula 3D. But you can't go in expecting prime Argento when he's not in his prime anymore. It's not fair. It's just I think people just they can't see past that. But it is what it is. It's just you're not in your prime anymore. But I'm happy he's still making whatever he wants to make, and he deserves it. If any guy deserves it, it's him because he's given us so much. Oh yes, great villains are great. It makes them. I agree. I like great villains. Stendhal Syndrome is fantastic. 9 out of 10, if you ask me. What would your rating be, Darren? I would probably agree with the 9 out of 10, or even 8.5, somewhere in that ballpark for sure.
So I'm trying to think now. What I put on Letterboxd it's either 8 or 9. It's one of them.
8 or 9. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about Trauma? I don't believe we rated Trauma out of 10.
I think I give Trauma an 8. So maybe I'll give Stendhal a 9 from what I remember, maybe. But
so 8, 9, 10 for you for these three movies.
Trauma, when I first saw Trauma, it was probably a 6. And then I started to watch it more and it's gone up. I'm trying to, it might have been a 7 or 8 Trauma. And this was 8 or 9.
Trauma grows on you. That's the thing. Like Trauma, I agree. First time I saw Trauma, totally a 6. Every time I've thought about it since and watched it since, I'm like, I like it a little bit more. So I don't know.
It's one of those films that, like, I think Uncle Bill says it when I think he's done like a retrospect. It's one of those films that it just draws you back in. You can't put your finger on it. You can't, you're not sure when you first watch it, but like you say, whether you think it's good or whatever. But for me, it just draws me back in every 6 months, 3 months, 6 months. I want to put it back on. And that's a sign of a good film.
It is a sign of a good film. Totally. When most directors do something drastically different from the usual, people usually turn on it. Most people don't like it, fear change in a way, which I get it, but it's still I agree completely. It's just it does suck, but that's when a loyal fan from a fan that just wants to see the same thing over and over again. And then there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't know. Sometimes I just want a little bit more flavor. I am excited to watch Black Glasses. I'm totally excited, man. Trauma 8.5. Nice. Okay. Now, so you went 10 for opera. I agree with that. Trauma 8 and then Stendhal 9. I would say 10. I'll probably go the same as you, 8, 9. I'll probably 10, 8, 9. Absolutely in that order. I think these are 3 really, really underrated movies, and opera gets its due, but the other 2 definitely.
So what would you rate Sleepless then? How would you rate that?
Sleepless, I like it more than Trauma, but I wouldn't put it over Stendhal or opera. I would say somewhere in 8.5, I guess, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah. But I love Sleepless. I do love the film. I would say Stendhal, I appreciate where he went different. Mateo asks, but before I asked you Sleepless, top 3 Argento movies.
Right. So that's a good question.
It's tough.
I would say obviously Suspiria.
Me too.
I would then go joint second with Opera Phenomena. Then I would go, if you want to go top 5, maybe.
You can do top 5.
So Bird with Crystal Plumage definitely in there, and Tenebrae.
Great picks. I would go Suspiria number 1, Deep Red number 2, Phenomena number 3. Wow. After that, it's tough. Opera number 4, Tenebrae number 5. That would be my top 5.
And see, I do love Deep Red, but I don't, absolutely love it, if you know what I mean. Yeah. It would come just not past, 6 or 7 probably in my list. But it's not, I don't know, it's not quite. I don't see the film everyone else sees. I think that I can see it's a masterpiece, but it doesn't work for me in the same way as I have a lot more fun, like with opera and phenomena. But
It's funny. I'm that way with Inferno.
Well, yeah, another good film. That would make my top 10, Inferno, but it wouldn't quite be up there high. But yeah, in terms of, it's a whole different thing with ratings, though, because you know what a good film is, but your favourites are different, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
I know Deep Red should be maybe number 1 or 2, along with The Bird with Crystal Plumage. I know they're the best films he's ever made, but in terms of enjoyment, I would rate them the way I do. But everyone's different.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the fun of making personal lists. Like that's what's so fun about it. Like I don't think Mother of Tears would be on anybody's Argento top 10. It would actually make mine. And that's saying a lot.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
And a lot of people hate that movie, but I would actually have it on the top 10. It would be up there. Because I don't know, I'm a big fan. And I also I did an Argento ranking. Like I did all his movies ranked on that tier list. And somebody posted, and Trauma was their number 1. I was like, see, that's why I love this.
Right.
Like found somebody who finds Trauma to be the best Argento movie. That's like, and with Argento, it seems to be one of those filmmakers that everybody usually has a different favorite. Like Mateo, I don't know what your favorite is. Aiden, I believe it's Suspiria. Sleepless is the most 80s film made in the 2000s. Yeah, that's totally true. I love that opening train sequence. It's phenomenal.
That's some of his best work. Again, is in that train sequence.
Yeah, no, I love it.
And that's a big statement to say, like, yeah.
Yeah, no. It's absolute maestro. But is there anything else you wanted to talk about on here before we wrap this up? Because this was a really fun discussion, man. It was fun talking all things Argento.
No, like I said, I'm just pleased that, we reached out and we got a chance to do this. I know the phone thing didn't work at start, but I'm not sure whether this picture looks a bit fuzzy, but I'm a perfectionist. But no, it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. Anytime you want, you want me to pop on or, I'll do it, and I've seen, like, in the past as well, you've done sort of little horror round tables with Don and that. And yeah, if ever you need someone to jump on and we'll have a discussion or whatever, yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm wanting to do some round tables more because we only did that one and it was a lot of fun, man. That was a really fun time. So yeah, no, I'll definitely, I have a few round tables planned. So I would love to have you on again. Maybe Steve, maybe the Dead Pit. That would be something really cool. I've never had them on. I don't know if they've ever watched my show, but that would be crazy.
I would imagine they have, yeah. And that's another thing. Like, I'll have a word with Steve and Dana. I'd love to get you on to Eurocult to do an episode.
Oh, dude, just tell me when. I thank you for coming on. I know the time difference in the UK is a little bit different, so I do really appreciate it. Originally, we were going to pre-record this, but I love the interacting and the comments, and I didn't want to rob you of that, so I was like, you know what, let me see what I can do. And I thankfully got off work at 5, and you were able to record around 6, so I was really happy that you were able to come on for this. But hey, man, yeah, Eurocult, I am down. Whenever, man, just let me know and I will love to come on.
Yeah, definitely. That's the only thing I can plug at the moment. I don't think I've got anything else going on at the moment. But I do eventually want to show off my collection and stuff on YouTube.
Is there? Do you have? I know you have a channel. Do you post much on it or?
Nothing at all. It's just basic where I subscribe to like loads of people. I watch a lot of American content. I think they're the best channels really on YouTube. But no, I haven't dipped my toe in it yet. So maybe this will give me the inspiration to do that. Hopefully.
Hey man, I'll tell you what. If you do, let me know, and we will give you a plug, man. We'll get you a bunch of subscribers. That sounds like gravy to me. Trenchy says, great show, guys. Stay frosty. Aiden says, fantastic show. Long live Argento. Thank you both so much. All right, so we will wrap it here. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. I had a great time talking all things Argento with you, Darren. Thank you so much for coming on. And once again, thank you for the time, meeting me in the middle here. It really means a lot. And everybody, if you haven't seen any of these movies, we highly recommend all 3. Mateo says, thank you both. You have a new subscription. Thank you, Mateo. I really appreciate you checking out the show tonight. Really means a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah.
Everybody, 2 sweet peace, and we will catch you next time only on The Graveyard. Good night, everybody.
Good night.